This is Outnumbered as we mark this Memorial Day. I'm Kennedy. Good to be with you. And here today we've got Fox News correspondent Molly Line, host of No Interruption on Fox Nation. Tommy Lahren is here. We've got syndicated radio host and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall. And in the virtual center seat, we love him, Joey Jones, retired U.S. Marine bomb tech, Fox News contributor and host of USA Inc., streaming now on Fox Nation. Welcome, everyone. Let's get right to it. The Wuhan leak theory gaining traction as more scientists and politicians question the origins of COVID-19. And a report suggests 3 Wuhan researchers went to the hospital shortly before the outbreak was confirmed. Meanwhile, journalists are now admitting their skepticism was in part due to the fact that former President Trump and other Republicans were pushing the lab leak theory. Yeah, and Jonathan Karl, and I've always respected him as a journalist. I've known him for a long time. I met him for the first time in 1996 when we were covering the Republican National Convention, Leslie, but he really betrays his bias the way he talks about the former president. And, you know, again, to my original point, that's so dangerous. But I look at something like that, and it makes people wonder, how many people are there in the media who are so hell-bent on their own political agenda that they're going to sacrifice the truth when millions of lives have been lost, Leslie?
Well, first of all, as a former journalist, Journalism 101, you report the facts, you don't become the story, and you shouldn't let your own personal biases, come into play. Sadly, what we see now in the world that we live in is that the lines between the truth and reporting facts and opinion and bias have all been blurred. And I certainly hope, actually, Tommy, on this Memorial Day, I will agree with you, not just because it's Memorial Day, but going forward, we want to know when we watch television, when we hear something on radio, read something in a paper or online, that we're getting the truth. Investigative journalists should have investigated this. Look, I'll give them a pass on. I'm not going to believe politicians when the majority of the international community and scientists were saying, not a lab. We think it's animal born as a vector because COVID's daddy and COVID's granddaddy was, ergo, we think this is. But still, over almost a year and a half later, we're kind of at the same place, which it came from one of these two places. And because China certainly doesn't let us get into that lab, we don't have that definitively. But journalists had and continue to have a responsibility to investigate that, and I'm glad to see that people were honest with what happened. But quite frankly, whether you like a president or don't like a president, that should not have anything to do with your job as a journalist. Your job is to report the facts.
The New York Post editorial board out with a blistering editorial on President Biden's border policy. It reads, quote, "Agents say they now spend their time on paperwork, working out or doing nothing at all." The Washington Post notes they actually fear being disciplined more for making an arrest than not making one. Border Patrol agents, meanwhile, have little time to stop people from crossing as they're on babysitting duty for unaccompanied minors who've entered illegally. It plainly amounts to open borders policy the hard left wants. Unless Biden changes course, expect a lot of suffering, lawlessness, and a different kind of America before long. Chad Wolf, who served as acting Homeland Secretary under President Trump, says the current administration is going about the crisis the wrong way. Leslie, I want to bring you in because Tommy covered a wealth of ground there, and part of that is something that a lot of conservatives believe, that there's a lot of strategy going here on the part of American officials, but also on the part potentially of cartels, that as these unaccompanied minors stream across the borders, it opens up a window of opportunity to smuggle in more drugs because the Border Patrol is very busy and distracted. So your thoughts on this essential accusation that the Biden administration's current policies amount to open border policy and all of the ramifications of that?
Okay, a lot to cover there, but I'll try and be brief. I know we don't have that much time. Okay, Title 42, which was created during the Trump administration, is still intact. We don't have open borders. And if you talk to some of the Border Patrol agents that I've talked to, Tommy and I are talking to different people, they will tell you that 73% of the individuals who were arrested and apprehended at the border are turned around, and that accounts for 90% of the single adults. The difference between former and current administration is families being reunited and more families and children being allowed, and trying to transfer people who had applied for asylum who are being held in Mexico Mexico and get them into the country and get them through the court system quicker for an outcome. 1. 2, to have everybody vote Democratic, well, then I got to tell you, the Biden administration, all the Democrats are doing a bad job, because there's no way that's going to happen in the next year, 2, or 4, because that's not what the pathway to citizenship is for somebody who's even in this country already and has been for decades illegal. And I want to speak to the drug cartel lastly, because this week on my radio show, we actually spoke to the DEA, and this is what they told me. 2 years ago, the relationship between the United States and Mexico started to break down with regard to the drug cartel. And that's when we saw a huge increase in fentanyl coming across the border, which continues. The real bad time, October, that's when the yuck hit the fan. And the reason for that is the United States of America actually arrested the former defense minister of Mexico. At the time, Attorney General Bill Barr was kind of like, oops, my bad, backpedaled and released him. And because of that, they're still angry, and we're having a real hard time having Mexico work with us. And one more last thing. In Mexico, you know, drug cartels aren't afraid of the military or the police in Mexico. It's the other way around. That needs to change within that nation as well.
Some of our nation's veterans reflecting on the meaning of Memorial Day as we honor the sacrifices of the men and women in uniform who paid the ultimate price for our freedom. But some college students at Georgetown University and others in the D.C. area are so offended by Memorial Day, they're even agreeing to sign a fake petition calling for it to be canceled. In this shocking video from the conservative news site Campus Reform. So, Leslie, Joey brings up a really good point. Not only why should we be paying for college, which is not within the purview of government, there should not be a government taking to educate people like that, but also why should we send our kids to college if that's the result?
There's so much I want to say here. First of all, my Jewish Uncle Harry, who fought in World War II in the Air Force, my father, who fought in the Korean War in the Navy, my cousin Keith, who fought in Desert Storm with the Marines, and I could go on. I am proud of what our troops have done. But what our troops have done answers both of your questions and what they continue to do. And I would thank you, Joey. And the reason for that is I, as a woman, and all of us here, are exercising the greatest thing, in my opinion, in the world, and that is our First Amendment. No other nation has it. And our nation has the freedom for you to sign a stupid petition that's fake, for trying to entrap people to sign a stupid petition that's
not
fake,
entrapment.
to speak against the speak against the president, to disagree with one another, and then be able to go out and have a beer together. And that's what Memorial Day is and should be, is thankful and remembering the men and women that have fought and died, the men and women who have survived, the men and women who continue to fight for our freedoms to be different than the rest of the world, and within our country, within our borders, to even be different from one another. And that's okay, even if it's stupid, which signing a petition like this is, in my opinion.
Swimsuits and sunscreen also in high demand. And those two things go together hand in hand. So, Leslie, what is behind all this? Did people get fat and dirty during the pandemic?
Absolutely. I'm getting a manicure next week, and maybe, just maybe, I'm wearing yoga pants under this dress. But I can't go out in public like that, right? So I think people are like, they're getting out there, and, you know, for the women and some men who like to sport that ponytail or man bun, they're going, got to get the hair done, got to get the hair cut, got to get a shave. Oh, God, you know, I got to smell pretty, I got to look pretty, because many of us haven't been looked at by a lot of people for a long time, and they're scared. They're scared of what people will see, and certainly what people will smell, and they want to put their best forward. And I think that's why we're seeing all this stuff come off the shelves, and it's good. It's putting money back into the economy.
As we honor our fallen soldiers today, a 100-year-old veteran is sharing his reflections on Memorial Day, saying it's important to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Robert Sanchez spent 30 years as a member of the military, serving in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He says the true heroes are those who never came back. And for him, this day means honoring the memory of his friends.
When you have special days like this one, of course, you think more about it. I had friends that I lost. In fact, most of my crew is gone. I'm the only member of the crew that's left. I think about them often, and I think about those that I knew that were lost there during the war, you know. It's not something you can forget easily. And I think that the heroes are not people like myself or stuff like that that went through that. The heroes are these people that gave their lives.
Leslie?
Two images come to mind. Opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, and we forget so many people, the men that stormed the beaches of Normandy, and we are speaking English and not Japanese or German as a result of that. Barely 18 years old, young men, barely men. And also another image online, an old man with a cane or a walker, and behind him a shadow of a big, strong Marine.